I'm a Cummins guy, but the 8-liter Magnum V10 offered in Ram trucks from 1994 to 2003 was a pretty stout unit and made a lot of people rethink the diesel option. And no, the Viper V10 and the Magnum V10 are not the same thing, they're not the same engine. There's a lot of documentation of this, and there's also a great interview with one of the lead design engineers for the Viper on YouTube. In the same way that Ford and GM offered various large displacement gasoline engines as a workhorse power plant alternative that was a much cheaper option than the diesel, the 488 cubic inch cast iron block Magnum V10 was the more affordable option to the Cummins. Now, looking at the spec sheet, which doesn't tell the whole story, you can see that especially early on, the Magnum V10 from just a raw power perspective really did hold its own against the Cummins. However, as you might guess, there was a very large fuel economy penalty to be paid. I've heard anywhere from 10 to 12 miles per gallon for the 8-liter V10, basically no matter what you're doing, towing or hauling. You could also option the Magnum V10 with a manual transmission, which if you know anything about automatic Rams is not a bad thing. Now, despite the Cummins getting basically all the attention, the Magnum V10 actually has a pretty big fan base. These engines, according to all the reports, were super stout. There were some cracked cylinder heads, I believe, early on, but from everything I've seen, those were fairly isolated incidents. This engine doesn't really seem to have a lot of major weak points. As Ram powertrain options evolved over the years into the early and mid 2000s, as well as the Cummins coming up in power and torque and technology getting better and better, the Magnum V10, depending on who you ask, slowly became irrelevant and was eventually discontinued in 2003. That said, if you have a short commute or you're just willing to pay the fuel penalty, the Magnum V10 by all accounts is a pretty stout option and can be had in most cases for pretty cheap.